Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Usagi Podjimbo podcast. I'm your host, Mike. We are back again with another episode for you guys today. Thanks for listening. If you're an old listener, thanks for listening. If you're a new listener, thanks for listening. I know we got a bunch of new listeners recently. I just want to say thanks for listening. It's always cool to meet new people who like to listen to your small little podcast, I have to say. But without further ado, let's actually get into this episode and start off. We are looking at chapter 3 of Circles, Shroud over the Mountains. So let's get into this. Before we get into the story, sorry. But if you like to help out the podcast, you can do so by sharing the podcast. Tell your friends and give me some feedback. Let me know how I'm doing. Feedback is always wanted if we're doing a podcast by yourself. But let's get into this. So our story starts out with one of the henchmen, the brigands, who captured Jotaro, who was holding Jotaro captured. And Jotaro is Mariko and Kenichi's son. They are on a quest to go find Jotaro. Usagi and Kenichi are at this time. For some reason, Jay, the guy who holds Blade of the Gods, actually I can't remember if he's a guy or a girl. I don't remember. Please tell me. Let me know what Jay is exactly. He is on a revenge mission because Usagi killed him basically in a duel before. And he somehow feels like this little kid Jotaro has some connection to old Usagi, Miyamoto Usagi. And that's where we start off with chapter 3, where this guy is basically complaining he's out in the woods with like a night watch duty almost. And he's like, oh man, it's so cold. I can't see in front of me. And somebody shows up to basically relieve him of his duties. And that person is Usagi. And Usagi has like the meanest, like most evil look on his face. Like he has like this evil laugh. And he hits him with the hilt of his handle off of his sword. And the guy basically gets the wind knocked out of him. And Usagi says to take him, hold him for the authorities. Kenichi happens to say, any chance another sentry is around? And according to Usagi, no, there are no other sentries around. And so they start to interrogate this guy. And he's basically like, hey, where is your hideout? Where's the other men? Are there any other sentries around? He's like, no, there aren't. They're 3 chos away. And 3 chos are actually 352 feet away, apparently. So they go off with the other men from the village. The morning fog is lifting, apparently. That's what Kenichi says. And they're about to lose their cover. We switch from that to the bandits' hideout in the mountains. And they're all asleep. They're all drunk from the night before, how they were like, partying it up and stuff like that, They're all sound asleep. Jay is sound asleep against a pillar. We see Jotaro tied up in another room. Unfortunately, little cute bunny boy is all tied up. He ends up encountering the same Tokage from last issue. He's like, hey, little lizard man, little lizard dude, can you come over here and help me out? And he feeds the Tokage some food. He puts the food inside his restraints, and he helps him bite his way out of the restraints, the rope, which is a very nice little Tokage. He hugs him and tells him he's a good boy or girl. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl Tokage. And Jotaro ends up going to get out of here. He's got to get home. He should be home before dark, he says. He pushes a board out, and as we see this, all the men are in position to take down the bandits. And Kenichi says, we've got them almost completely surrounded. And we see Jay actually wake up. And he's like, oh my God, they're here. They're getting here. They're approaching, and everybody's all groggy and drunk and on hangover from the night before. You're like, oh, what's going on, Jason? And they're like, he's like, the gods have spoken to me. in my sleep. The truth cannot be hidden. My nemesis is out there. And they're like, are you sure about that? Are you really sure about that? And Jay doesn't take this kindly. He's very much like, yeah, they are. Do you think I'm a fucking liar? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying I'm a liar? And he's like, if you saying I'm a liar, I'm going to skewer you alive. And he basically goes, he threatens this guy who he got to help basically hire to take a test to guard Jotaro. And you see this guy, he's running out. He's like, oh, God, I got to go. This guy's crazy, you know. Better go run away. I'm going to not be a bad guy anymore. I'm going to go do honest work with my brother. And then all you see is this arrow come out of nowhere and just kill this guy. I got to say, I laughed at this part. I thought it was really funny. Apparently that fool did not believe in the word of the gods, according to Jay. And so they start boarding up the area where they're at, the building where they're at. Jotaro is getting ready to go out. He sees Jay. Jay sees Jotaro. Jay goes and lunges for Jotaro, captures him, but the Tokage ends up helping Jotaro out, biting Jay. He gets thrown to the wall, the little lizard does, but Jotaro gets out barely, and he gets grabbed by ankle by Jay. Very horror movie-esque scenario right here. And he starts kicking him, and he does actually get away. And he's like, I've got to get this guy back. I got to get this kid back, Jay says. You know, he has some kind of link to Usagi, to Usagi, not Osage, Usagi. I can't talk today. Usagi and Kenichi are getting ready to raid or take down these bad guys. They say, ready the fire arrows, and they happen to see that Jotaro is running away, and they send one of their send one of the men that are with them. And Jotaro, Kenichi tells them to follow Jotaro, and his name is Saiboro, I believe his name is, and he is one of the guys from the village that Kenichi and Jotaro live. And Jay is running after him, and they see that the demon apparently is going after him, as Kenichi says. And he's like, and Usagi's shocked to see that that Jay is here. And Kenichi's like, you know this guy? And he's like, yeah, he's a crazed killer, And he's like, I gotta save my son. Kenichi says, and Usagi's like, no, don't do this. You organize the coalition of the village. Only you lead them. Only you can lead them, and I'll rescue Jotaro. So all the men inside the hideout are basically all getting ready. Still, they think Jay and Jotaro are still in this hut, but they're not. They're not, and they. Kenichi and the men start firing fire arrows on the huts, smoking them out. And the men are going like, oh no, what's going on? Oh, we gotta get water. Oh no, we're out of water. What do we do? They take the Tommy mats and use them as shields, which it's a cool scene. I really like this scene of them like holding the giant mats up in the air, but sadly, it does work a little bit. Some of them die, some of them don't. But Kenichi and the men actually go and rush the men who are running out of the building. This next scene, it's a very much pulled back scene where they're all fighting in one ginormous area. I really got Where's Waldo vibes in this scene, because that's what it reminded me of, was Where's Waldo? Like, hey, where is Kenichi? I don't see Kenichi. Oh, there's Kenichi. But we get this really cool scene, I have to say. And then we see Jotaro running away. He ends up at a cliff near some water. Samboro, or whatever his name was, the guy who Kenichi sent after Jotaro, finds him. And he's like, oh, thank God you're here. I found you. Your father organized this group of people to come look for you. And he's like, oh, thanks. I got this guy with like the weird eyeballs, he has like no eyes, no pupils. He was running after me, and sadly, Saburo does not make it at all. We see Usagi running through the forest, and we see Jay holding Jotaro. And he's like, Usagi, I knew the boy would lure you out here. And you see Jotaro is like, Uncle Usagi, Uncle Usagi. Usagi tells Jotaro that don't worry, I'm going to save you soon, and you're going to be home, he says. And he says to Jay, he's like, Jay, so you survived the lightning strike, because if you don't remember, in Blade of the Gods, that issue, Jay ends up getting struck by lightning and supposedly dies. And we find out, Jay did die, exactly. I was shocked just as much as you were when I read this. Jay died, but he was actually reincarnated and brought back because his work on Earth was unfinished. Jay happens to say that the gods still call to me, Usagi. I can't only answer I can only answer with your death. And Usagi's like, let the boy go. The boy means nothing to you. And he's like, no, because he means something to you. Obviously, he means something to Jay because he's going to get under Usagi's skin and possibly get the advantage. And he's like, Usagi says, you call yourself an emissary of the gods. You hide behind a child, and just makes Jay like really mad. And Jotaro gets away from from Jay, and he's like, Jay says, bah, take the brat. I don't need him. And you see Jotaro run to Usagi. He's like, Uncle Usagi. He's like, you all right? Yeah. And he tells Jotaro to run, keep running until he gets to the I want to say he gets back to his dad because Jay is trying to use Jotaro to basically distract Usagi. And I want to say it might work just a little bit. I'm not for sure exactly. But we have this fierce fight. Very, very well done. Very well drawn fight. They're both hacking and slashing at each other. We find out that in an open area, spears are more effective than a sword. And we like the way it looks like the way he actually drew like the slashing effects are a little different in this issue, and depending on like are differing from like older issues, I would say. Which I really like the speed lines. I like the old speed lines too, but like the way he draws in this particular issue, Stan Sky does, it's really like fierce and like frenetic almost. Very anime-esque, I would say. But not Jotaro, Jay and Usagi are fighting. Jay ends up coming down and trying to hit Usagi with the spear. Usagi actually breaks Jay's spear. He breaks the blade of the gods, or breaks the wood part of the gods. I don't know what you would call it. The wooden shaft part? I don't know. And Usagi ends up losing one of his swords because he gets stuck inside the wood part of Jay's spear, and he actually gets cut, and he gets first blood because Jay ends up smacking him in the face. This part, I was like, wait, what's going on? And I totally forgot that Jay also had swords too. Maybe it just was so distracted by the spear of the gods that, Jay fights with swords, which is the first time we see him fighting with swords. But he does get the upper hand on Usagi. Usagi reaches for something. It is the actual blade of the spear that Jay was using, and he ends up thrusting it in to the chest of Jay. And this scene is so epic because he is on the edge, on the ground, on the edge of this cliff, and he has Jay impaled on the spear that he once wielded. And they end up sort of rolling off. Jay ends up rolling off this big, massive cliff. Usagi happens to catch himself. He is barely hanging on, sweating, trying to hold on. He can't catch his grip. The rocks are crumbling. And he actually gets saved. Who does he get saved by? He gets saved by Kenichi. And you see him, he's shocked that Kenichi would actually save him. Because they do have this like rivalry between them. And Kenichi says, Jotaro found us after we defeated all the bandits, and he told me what happened, and I thought you might need some help. Jotaro said, Kenichi says, sorry, I'm going to get those two mixed up. Kenichi says, you might need some help. And Usagi says, "Oh, I owe you my life." And you see this look on Kenichi's face of like almost like anger, almost, or like I guess maybe it's just resting bitch face for Kenichi. I don't know. He's like, you saved my son. I owe you nothing." And that is where this particular issue ends. Whoa, boy, this particular issue was very, very action packed. I loved it. It was fun, fierce, frenetic. Like I said, I like to see that Jotaro is not like a damsel in distress. He can sort of hold his own in a tough situation. But I like seeing Kenichi and Usagi work together. I love that because I mean, yes, there is a rivalry, just like there is a rivalry with Naruto and Sasuke. There's a big rivalry, love triangle rivalry with Kenichi and Usagi because Usagi left and Kenichi stayed, and he basically became the head of the village and stuff like that. So he took all these other responsibilities. He gave up his life as a samurai, or he didn't give up his life as a samurai. He gave up his life in the service of somebody, and as a retainer for like a lord. He still is a samurai. But I love this. I loved seeing Jay. I love us sort of getting an example why Jay's back, kind of. It's interesting. It leaves a lot to the mind to wander and think about like what is Jay actually an emissary of the gods? Because the last issue we saw him in, it was a very like, oh my god, is he like a mystical devil god thingy? And I was like, oh, this kind of confirms it. He might be an emissary of the gods because he does reference that he is, the gods are talking to him. But one thing I really liked about this issue is the beginning of it as well. I don't know if Usagi was a little bit out of character, but he definitely liked to play that like bad guy card, and like Kenichi maybe was like the good guy, good cop, bad cop type of thing. But like the shading that he did, Stan Sakai does in the beginning, which I didn't mention in the beginning of this episode. But like the shading and the cross hatching he does is really, really nice. And like the absence of like black and just letting like white almost take over the page at some point, and just have like this like light shading on the trees, like gives it this very like eerie feel. But man, this issue was like, oh my god, it was like a barn burner almost. It seemed like because we got like round 2 of Kenichi, or not Kenichi, of Usagi and Jay. One of his most formidable opponents, other than like Zatu Ino, like which Usagi isn't really bested a lot, and he almost got bested today, but luckily he survived. I mean, you can't really kill off the main character, can you? He has a lot of plot armor. Well, I mean, I guess I don't know, but yeah, this is totally fun. The plot thickens. Why is Jotaro so important to Jay and Usagi? Like, why is he so important? What's going on? I know what's going on. Do you know what's going on? Because we're gonna get into some major spoilers next time, where we end up finishing circles, and we're gonna get totally into the ending of this, which, in my personal opinion, changes Usagi Yojimbo comics forever, in my opinion. Like, I feel like it's a big, impactful issue, and we'll find out why, what's going on. I want to say thank you for listening. Thank you to all the new people. Thank you for all the old people listening. Thank you for supporting this little podcast. If you can hit me up on Facebook on Usagi Podjimbo, Usagi Yojimbo Podcast. If you want to give me some feedback, give me some feedback. I would love to hear your criticism, your likes, your dislikes about this podcast. And yeah, because like, I mean, I would love feedback, just let me know. Let me know if I'm doing a good job or a shitty job. I don't know, but yeah, thanks for listening. Stay safe. Go read some Usagi Yojimbo or some other comic books. And I will catch you guys on the next episode. I couldn't talk. I almost said issue, episode. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Stay safe. Peace out.